In life, we all encounter obstacles, and those obstacles come in all different shapes, sizes, and forms. The question is, how do we handle those obstacles? Do we attack them head on, or do we allow them to make us quit? Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up on themselves, their dreams, or their goals. We will interview successful people from all walks of life as they share their no-quit stories when they had the choice to give up or give in, but they didn't. We thank you for listening, and we hope to be that jolt of positivity as you go for your greatness. Welcome to episode number 222 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is living in your alignment. Our quote of the day comes to us from Steve Maraboli. A lot of the conflict you have in your life exists simply because you're not living in alignment. You're not being true to yourself. Today's episode is sponsored by Cain. Your journey is your story. Cain is a lifestyle jewelry brand that simply exists to embody your unique personal journey and remind you that no matter how difficult life can be, anything is possible. Be the dream, be the change with Cain. Follow at Cain Life, QAN, and support the mission at cainlife.com, QANLIFE.com. It is really an honor to bring you today's episode. I recently read his book, The 1% Intention, and I absolutely loved it. It would be impossible to miss Brian Cain's positive energy and not only what he is doing, but the way in which he is paying it forward for others. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Brian, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Chris, it's an honor to be with you, man. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. So the first question I ask everybody is, are you ready to bring it today?
I mean, is it a day that ends in Y? Because you always got to be ready to bring it, because if you're useful, you're useful, and if you're juiceless, you're useless, man. So I'm ready to go. Dumb question.
I love it. I love it. So, as you know, the number one objective of our show is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never give up. And I was curious if you have either a no-quit story of your own or perhaps a really challenging time that tested you and you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
Well, I mean, I think it goes all the way back to, when I got out of graduate school in 2003. I had done my master's in sports psychology with a legend in the field named Ken Ravizza. And I, wanted to be a mental performance coach. And there really isn't a path. Like, it's not like there's jobs you can go find online at universities or schools or with companies to go in and be a mental performance coach. They just don't really exist. So you kind of by nature get thrown into the role of entrepreneur. And it was funny that when I started, two of the guys that were in my wedding, two of my best friends from high school, they were both playing professional baseball at the time. And, they were both giving me a bunch of shit of like, hey, man, I'm going to go jump off a bridge because I didn't pitch well. I need a mental performance coach, and they were always like saying, man, this is a waste of time. I can't believe you're doing this. Like, no one's going to ever want to hire you just for something they can get out of a book. Like, they don't need mental coaching. And ironically, both of these guys' careers were cut a little bit short, probably because of a lack of mental performance coaching. And it's funny how they've both come full circle and are now working with me. Not working with me as in they're on my team and they're all in on mental performance coaching. It's what they do for a career now.
That's awesome. It does come full circle, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it totally does. So that was one of the no quit, and especially while you're kind of grinding and you're going through it. I was a high school teacher. I was a high school athletic director, and I kind of had this pipe dream of wanting to be a mental performance coach. And I never had a business plan. I just really loved doing the work, and when I got started doing it, it was more probably out of hobby and excitement than thinking, oh, I want to do this as an income generator for my life. And even to this day, like, I don't really have a business plan. I just love what I do every day. And I think if you look at the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, he doesn't call it this, but I do. It's called Living in Sin. Right? And sin is an acronym, SIN. Don't hate me, Bible thumpers that are listening to this, but sin is, what is your area of strength? What is your area of interest? And what does the world need? He calls them your hedgehog circles, right? And if you can find out what your strength is so good that you could be best in the world, what your interest is so good that you would pay to do it, and what the world needs so much that they would hire you for your expertise, if you can live in that nexus point, if you can live in that area of sin, then you're going to be unstoppable and you're going to be able to have tremendous influence, impact, and make an income in doing it. And I think I found that in the niche of mental performance coaching. And, the other no-quit example I was going to use was just less than a month ago on June 1st, I signed up to do my first ultra marathon. I ran 100 miles June 1st, 6 a.m. until noon on June 2nd. It took me 29 and a half hours straight. It was called the Lighthouse 100 in Traverse City, Michigan. And I can tell you that At mile 1, I wanted to quit. At mile 15, I wanted to quit. I was in tears and telling my wife, like, this is stupid. I don't know why I'm doing it. And you just keep moving forward. And what you realize as you keep moving forward is that the pain ends. There is a finish line. It will come to a finish, but you just have to keep going. And if you do not accept quitting as an option, although quitting is always the easiest, most viable option, it's right there in front of you anytime you want to take it. And I'm not a proponent of not quitting in certain things, but I wasn't going to quit that day of that race. That was a goal of mine to finish. I do think the time to quit is when you're involved in something that you no longer have energy for, you're no longer interested in doing it. It's time to go pursue something else. And I think a lot of times people get stuck in a job. A young person gets stuck on a team or in a club, and they say, hey, you got to see this through. This is what you're supposed to do. And they're doing it for all the wrong reasons. And they want to go pursue something else. So I'm actually an avid quitter. And the reason why I say I'm an avid quitter is because you quit things until you find what you're meant to do with your life. And then quitting is not an option. But it often takes a long time to get there.
You know, I'm so glad you touched on that, because I've been asked that question quite a bit, and being a guest myself on quite a few shows, the question is asked, you know, do you feel you never quit no matter what? And I always answer that question similar to the way you did. And I think when you have no passion, no desire, you know, you're not in it at all, you know, there's a difference of quitting, and it's finding something else. So I'm really glad you touched on it, because I like the way how you analyze it in that.
Well, it's like if you have the no quit mentality, right, which is going to help you in certain places and it's going to kill you in others. Like if you get into gambling and you're honest, you're sitting there at a table and you think you're going to be able to scratch and claw and get yourself back into the positive, you better quit. If you don't, you're going to be broke. If you're into using drugs or into using alcohol and I go, I got this 30 pack that I'm going to drink and I'm not going to quit, you might end up dead. You know, so the no quit mentality, I say nothing in life is good or bad. Nothing is good or evil. It is all your choice and your decisions that make it so. It's what you decide to do with it. So the no quit mentality can help you to do anything and everything, but it also can kill you if you don't use it in the right way at the right time.
No, I love that, and I appreciate you touching on how you did. Wanted to ask you, how do you define success, or what does success look like to you?
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. I have a process that I go through on the first day of every quarter. And today we're doing this interview. It's July 1st, 2019. So I spent time this morning, about an hour, going through what I call my MVP process. It's getting reconnected to my mission, which is what I want written on my gravestone, which is educate, empower, energize others to be their best. It's my vision, which are the tangible goals that I have for my life, like certifying 10,000 coaches in mental performance mastery, and then tangible goals for the next 90 days, this quarter 3 of 2019, one of which would be do the Santa Rosa half Ironman under 6 hours. Another one would be write a piece of content every morning upon awakening, things like that. So my definition of success, ironically, which is right on this sheet of paper, is very clear. It says, did you live in alignment with your core principles today? And my core principles are the acronym DELP, D-E-L-P, discipline, energy and excellence, love, and then present, process, productive. And if I can live in alignment with those core values or core principles, I like to call them because it fits better with an MVP process, and I can live in alignment with my mission of did you educate, energize, and empower other people to be their best today, if I lived in alignment with that, to me, that's my definition of success. And for a long time, my definition of success was around a bank account. It was around a scoreboard. It was around how productive were you in terms of, writing books or how many people you had on your email list and things like that. And none of that means anything unless you're aligning with like your true mission of why you exist. And once I found that and I was able to define what success meant for me, I was playing on my own scoreboard. And that allowed me to be more offensive. That allowed me to be more on the attack and to say no to things that didn't align with who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be known much easier. And that's one of the questions I'm glad you asked. It's one of the questions I ask my clients all the time, whether they're SEC head football coaches or they're 9-year-old Little League baseball players. I always ask them, how do you define success for yourself? And they don't really have an answer. So I think that's one of the best questions that you can ask. And I think it's one of the best questions that your clients or your people listening to this podcast can ask themselves is, how do you define success for your life? Because if you don't have a definition, guess what? Someone else will give you one, and it's probably not going to be the one that you want. It'll probably be something you pick up off Instagram or Twitter or what the outside world says is success, which is usually compared to what you look at when you look inside of yourself.
No, I could not have said that better myself, and I agree with a lot of how you word it. And I think it's so important to define it, like you said, in your own ways, because if not, somebody else is going to define it. Usually, it's a boss or a coworker or a manager, and then all of a sudden you're just following them down that path, and that's fine for a day or two, but that's not how you want to live your life.
No, you want to live your life on your terms, and ideally what you're trying to find is, the career that you have or the mission that you have, and I call them the 4 stages of commitment, right? And stage 1 is I go to a job. Stage 2 is I do work. Stage 3 is I have a career. But stage 4, man, is you're on a mission. And the only way you can get onto a mission is if what you're doing with the majority of your time every day, which we would throw into the career or the work category, right? The income producing category for the majority of your life, if that doesn't align with your personal core values, which most people don't know what theirs are, or that doesn't align with your personal mission, which most people don't have written down, then there's no way that you can be on a mission. Those things have to align, and that's where I encourage people to quit. Is that if you're what you're doing every day, you wouldn't pay to do it, then you're in the wrong position, man. And sometimes you get stuck because you have kids too early, or sometimes you get stuck because you haven't invested time developing your own skill set because you spend so much other time watching other people's skill sets, watching Netflix or being online or whatever it is. So, if you're not willing to make the investment to develop your own skill set, then you might be stuck in a job that you can't quit, that you don't love, that doesn't align your goals. But guess what? If you got time to watch TV, you got time to go to work on yourself. No excuses.
No, I love that. And I wanted to ask you, if you had to define yourself, but you could only use one word, what would that word be?
Real good question. The things that come to my mind would be energy, would be process, and I would like to say principle driven. I need a lot of work in that area. I think I'm still definitely developing there, but I would say energy, man, because I just feel like it's like the first question: are you ready to get after it today? And I feel like because I live in alignment with what I truly want to do, and I found that area of sin or that nexus point of strengths, interests, and needs. I feel like waking up energized to attack the day isn't a problem. My problem is turning it off and going to sleep at night because I just can't wait to serve, man. I can't wait to be able to educate, empower, and energize other people. It's what I want to do with my life, and I've been fortunate to be able to get paid well to do it.
No, I think you definitely have energy, and I think it's important, and a lot of people lack that energy, and I think that's when you go through the days where it's 9 to 5 and you're just counting down the hours. So I'm curious to get your perspective. One of the things we discussed is the morning routine, and I wanted to ask if you have either a morning or a daily routine that you swear by.
100%. I have them written down on paper, and if you don't have your routines written down on paper, you don't have one. And I say to people, you have to stop living in the clouds and start living in the dirt. The clouds is, I have a routine, it's in my head. No, the dirt is write it down on paper so you can look at it, so you can reflect on it, and so you can measure it. And I in my book, The 1% Intention, I talk about, a success cycle of number 1, you set an intention. Number 2, you schedule it. And I schedule every minute of my day. Step 3 is you measure it. How am I doing at executing the routines and things I want to do? And then step 4 is you reflect on, okay, well, what do I need to do to get better? And then that process repeats itself. So my routine is, in an ideal world, I'm in bed at 9 o'clock. I'm up at 5 a.m. And my morning routine is I read a page a day of Ryan Holiday's Daily Stoic. I read a page a day of my own book, The Daily Dominator. I call Success Hotline with Dr. Rob Gilbert. I'll give you that number. It's a 3-minute message. You call and listen. I've been calling since 2006. It's completely changed my life. 973-743-4690. You just call and listen. It is magical. And then I will go through an app on my phone called Optimize with Brian Johnson, and I'll go through and listen to one of his plus ones. And then later on that's my morning routine. Then I get right into exercise, and I feel like I want to sweat before I get in front of a screen, because if I open up my email or I open up text messages, then I'm already into like the call it the mission execution mode of trying to serve or help other people. But I got to take care of myself first. So after I hit those pieces in the morning, I usually get right into some kind of like core work, stretching, and then I'm getting into some kind of cardio, whether it be a swim, a bike, or a run. And then sometime during the day, depending on, sometimes I do it as part of my morning routine. Sometimes I do it before bed. I often will do it if I'm on a flight, or I'll do it if I'm using like Normatec recovery boots at some point during the day. I'll use the Calm meditation app and do a meditation. And then in the morning too, right upon awakening, right as I get up, I weigh myself, I take my supplements, and then I'm into my reading and other things. And then at night, what I do is I will check my 168, which is 168 hours in a week. So I'll check my schedule to make sure that I'm going to, I plan tomorrow tonight. So I look at how I want to attack the day tomorrow, and then I close down the computer. I'll go and hang out with the family, do what I do that night. And then I will plug in my phone on top of my clothes in the bathroom next to my sink. And I will take my nighttime supplements. I take a Thorne PM vitamin. I take a CBD, kind of like hemp oil pill, and I take a ZMA with ZMA. It's like a zinc magnesium with theanine. Take that. I get in bed. I usually am reading, and I fall asleep 5-10 minutes. And then when I wake up, it's bathroom, morning supplements, clothes on, into the gym at the house, going through my reading, and then I'm into the exercise routine. And those are my blocks, and they're written down, and I've timed it. And I know how long they take, and I try that. Where I get beat sometimes is if I'm on the road in a hotel. Sometimes I get out of my routine, and that's kind of one of my areas for growth right now is when I'm not home and I'm on the road, sticking to executing that AM and PM routine, because I'm a huge believer that how you bookend your days with your AM and PM routines is going to have massive impact on how you perform during the day.
I could not agree more. How you bookend your days, and so many of my guests have talked about the morning routine or morning ritual actually starting the night before. So I'm glad you touched on it. I want to ask you if you've read anything recently, or if you're currently reading something that you'd like to recommend to our listeners.
Yeah, I'm actually reading a book. It's called The Heart of a Champion, and it's by Deneen Taylor. So Deneen Taylor is a world champion in women's professional rodeo, and she wrote a book about her story. And I got the book because Deneen was a client of mine that I worked with one-on-one. When she was, she was number 2 in the world, number 3 in the world for years. She was looking for an edge. We started to work together, and she made a couple changes in her routine and started using some visualization and having some release techniques and things like that. And she ended up winning a world championship. And she wrote a book about kind of her journey. And I mean, it's one of those books that when you open it, you can't put it down. You basically, you're getting so pulled into her story, overcoming so much adversity. And just her story of what it really is like for a champion who has a goal and has a vision and literally will not quit. I mean, she's a guest you should get on your podcast, because her story defines will not quit. There were so many times where she could have quit because of health. She could have quit because of finances. She could have quit because of frustration. She could have quit because of so many things, but she never did, and she'll be a world champion the rest of her life. Heart of a Champion by Deneen Taylor.
That's awesome. So speaking of books, I have to tell you, and I know we briefly spoke about it before we started the recording, but I just finished reading your new book, The 1% Intention, and I thought it was amazing in so many ways, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but I think the simplicity of what you talk about and how you describe it it's impossible to miss. So I'm just wanted to see if you could just give us like a kind of 20-second kind of why you wrote the book and where can our listeners find it.
Sure, Chris. I appreciate that feedback. They can find the book if they go to briancain.com and click on products. They'll see a link to the 1% Intention underneath that with some information about the book. It's briancain.com. They can also pick it up on Amazon. And the reason why I wrote the book was I've spent a lot of time. I spent 8 years of my life as a high school teacher, athletic director, assistant principal, kind of in those environments, right? And I get asked to go in and speak a lot, especially in the fall, for in-services for schools. And so I started thinking about, like, what was some of the biggest challenges I saw being in the public school setting, and just those challenges in the public school setting actually mirror the challenges of the United States of America. And a lot of it is people live in an external world focused on the opinions and the approval of others instead of going internal and having the understanding that if you want more, you have to become more. And a better you as a teacher is a better classroom, and your students learn more. So it all starts with your self-development. And I worked with a top football coach in the SEC, and he would always say to his team, hey, we got to get 1% better today, get 1% better today. And I'd always sit there and I would think to myself, like, how do we know if we're getting 1% better? Like, to me, that's too much in the clouds. You got to take that and put that in the dirt. So I sat down with a friend of mine, Kevin Guzzo. It was actually his idea. He's the athletic director at St. Joe High School in Michigan. And he said to me, he goes, Canner, look, do you know what 1% of a day is? So Kevin, what are you talking about? He goes, look, man, there's 1,440 minutes in a day. And 1% of 1,440 is 14 minutes and 24 seconds. And I took it and I ran with it. And the book, The 1% Intention, is about a teacher who's entrenched and a teacher who's kind of just going through the motions And he ends up meeting a woman who's working in the cafeteria who's full of energy, full of juice. And she starts to talk with him about living with intention and getting 1% better, meaning take 14 minutes and 24 seconds, 1% of your day, and invest it into your own development. And whether that investment means into walking in your health, whether that means into the Bible and prayer or faith development, or it means putting it into meditation to build the skills of self-control, or putting it into reading to grow your mindset, or putting it into just quality time without your telephone, engaged with your family. And if you can be intentional about creating a 14-minute and 24-second or 1% growth plan, that's going to get momentum on your side. And when you continue to do a little, a lot, and you see that growth, all of a sudden now you start to invest more time, you start to become better, you start to grow, and you start to really start living life at a high level. So that was something that I think a lot of times people want to grow and they want to get better, but they make it way more complicated than it needs to be. Literally set 14 minutes and 24 seconds of an intention and do something that aligns with your goals. It's going to allow you to be a better version of yourself. And over the course of time, that will kick in, and you will, both the compound effect, which is another one of my favorite books by Darren Hardy,
Great
you'll
book.
put the compound effect on your side, and you will see significant, massive change in development.
You know, what I absolutely loved about your book is people that know me and when I speak on stage and through the show is you either have your excuses or your results, but you can't have both. And for me, one of the things I'll do from stage is I'll ask people to, spit out some excuses that they've either given themselves or they've heard, and we talk about it, and it's kind of funny, but then we jump into like what you talked about is the 1%, and I don't care who you are, where you are, everybody can spend 1% on themselves. Everybody can't obviously spend 2 or 3 or 4 hours, but when you break it down and how you did so basic of 14 minutes and 24 seconds, it's impossible to really accept anything other than going ahead and doing it.
Yeah, it really is. And it's kind of like the no excuses, no quit mentality, right? Of make it so simple that you cannot fail. And a lot of times I think, like when we go back to talking about AM and PM routines, people have this really elaborate routine. There are times, Chris, during the year where my travel schedule kicks in. I'm on the road 280 days a year. There's times where literally my AM routine is wake up and move your body. And I might do a 10-minute yoga flow in the hotel room. I might go run for 10 minutes. I won't have any more time than that, so I'm going to get 10 minutes in and I'm going to just move my body first, because for me, like, that's my big domino. And I think with routines, you have to find out what's your domino or your non-negotiable, that if you were to do just one thing that you felt like was going to give you better energy and focus for the day to serve others, what would that thing be? And for me, it's exercise and movement, more than reading, more than calling Success Hotline, more than doing something else. And then at night, it's literally lay my clothes out and plug my phone in far enough away from my bed where I can't reach it. Because if I can reach it, I don't have the discipline to not be on it all night. There's too much awesome stuff out there in the world that you want to talk to people, or you want to watch, you want to check in. Like, I literally will plug my phone in the hotel room, in the bathroom, so that I don't reach it in bed. And the nights that the only outlet that I can find is like the one in the bedroom next to the bed, I'm on the damn thing all night.
No, I appreciate that. So I know we don't have that much time, but I do want to get your perspective on your amazing certification course and just let our listeners know a little bit more about it, and more importantly, for those that are interested in getting into it, how do they do so?
Yeah, Chris, I appreciate it, man. That's awesome. I'm glad you mentioned that. So if they go to briancain.com/certification, they can read about my brand new mental performance mastery certification. And it comes back to when we were talking about being on a mission. And my mission is to educate, empower, energize other people to be their best. Now let's take that mission and let's make it tangible so we can measure it and we can actually work towards it. So one of my big vision goals is I want to certify 10,000 coaches over the course of my lifetime. And I've broken that down into 500 coaches a year for the next 20 years. That gets us to 10,000. And if each of those coaches can impact 1,000 lives over the course of their careers in the mental performance area, that's going to impact 10 million lives. And if on my gravestone it says helped impact 10 million lives through mental performance mastery, then I feel like I've lived a successful life. And the certification course is for anybody that works in the space of personal training, athletic coaching, life coaching, athletic administration. If you're in human resources in the corporate world, anybody that is working with people and they feel like the people that they're guiding or coaching or mentoring or leading, there's a mental performance component to it. The certification course is going to help them to achieve goals and get results faster by building an elite mindset, creating the right habits and routines, and the culture that's going to drive those results. And the certification program is, through my system on the 10 pillars of mental performance. You get a workbook, there's videos online, you go through that content, and then you take the test online, and you become a certified mental performance mastery coach.
That's awesome. And for our listeners that want to find out more about that, that's just all through your website. And what also do you share, or would you share for our listeners that want to connect with you via social media?
Absolutely, yeah. If they go to briancain.com and then they can see the certification course there, and they can read about it. And I'm trying to empower people. And if somebody gets in the certification course and they're like, "Hey, this isn't what I thought it was going to be," or I was looking for something else, and we refund them. There's no risk involved there. We want to impact people. And I feel like if you've been an athlete or you've been a coach or you've worked with human beings, there is a tremendous mental performance component to everything. Like one of my clients with the Whirlpool that makes probably the washer and dryer in your house. There's a massive mental component to running a plant that has 4,500 employees. It's like a small city. How do you connect, and how do you grow leaders, and how do you make sure that your people are in the right frame of mind mentally, so that will decrease the incidence for injury or other things that happen on the floor. So, that I think is going to be something that fits for all leaders, the mental performance course. And for people that want to connect, they can get me through briancain.com, and they can also get me on Twitter and Instagram at briancainpeak. And I had a great compliment one time it was actually from Dr. Rob Gilbert of Success Hotline. And he said, "Brian, you're not only an expert," he said, "you're an available expert." And that means a lot, because a lot of people that may be experts in their field, good luck trying to get a hold of them.
No, that's awesome. And I can attest that you were very easy to get a hold of, and obviously that's why you're doing this today. And then last question for you, Brian, is I want to see if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners.
Yeah, I would say, that your process is working perfectly for the results that you're getting. So if you want more results, you need more of a process. If you don't like where you're at, it's because of your process. And, I think you have to step back, and I use the analogy of a billiards player. If you watch world-class billiards players, or even if you walk into your local, bar and you're playing pool, you go up, you hit a shot, you don't just stay at the table and hit the next shot. You step back, you chalk your stick, you look at your angles, you find out what your next best shot is, and then you go and you hit the next ball. And I think we need to do that more with our life. I think that we need to press pause during the day. We need to reflect and say, is what I'm about to do aligning with who I want to be and how I want to serve the world? And that's why, I don't watch TV unless one of my teams or athletes is performing. I'll watch it, but I don't know if I've ever watched Netflix other than watching Alex Honnold's documentary on free solo, because I don't watch any of the, people ask, "Oh, have you seen this TV show?" And I'm like, dude, I do not have time to watch TV because I'm too busy trying to craft my own life, so that maybe someday they'll make a TV show about me, about a guy who is there to serve other people and help people to become their best. Like, I don't care about being entertained and watching TV. There's enough growth that I want to do to serve other people that I don't need to waste my time there. That's my mentality. That's not going to fit for everybody, but that's why there's no traffic jams on the extra mile, man.
I love it. Well, listen, Brian, I truly, truly appreciate not only the fact that you share some amazing stuff, but again, your book was unbelievable, and I hope you and I can connect again soon.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much, man, and really appreciate you having me, and hopefully I offered something of value for your guests and your listeners and your followers, and hopefully I'll be able to engage with them and help them become the best version of themselves.
Thank you for listening to episode number 222. Brian Cain is very disciplined, and his focus and commitment to the processes that he uses each and every day are quite impressive. The positive approach he has towards helping others through both his business as well as his certification program is very inspiring. Brian shared some really interesting and thought-provoking ideas with his mission, vision, as well as his principles. He also touched upon the importance of his morning routine, but also how it begins the night before. He mentioned how he tries to bookend both the beginning and the ends of his day. Brian is on a mission to empower others, and he's definitely leading by example. To end today's episode, I have a couple of questions that I would like to pose to you. What is your mission? What about your vision? What are the principles you swear by? And what about the processes you use and apply each day? As you go for your greatness today, I would like to challenge each and every one of our listeners to take out a pen and paper and to define what success looks like and what success means to you. To quote the famous Zig Ziglar, you can't hit a target you cannot see, and you cannot see a target you do not have.
In life, we all encounter obstacles, and those obstacles come in all different shapes, sizes, and forms. The question is, how do we handle those obstacles? Do we attack them head on, or do we allow them to make us quit? Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up on themselves, their dreams, or their goals. We will interview successful people from all walks of life as they share their no-quit stories when they had the choice to give up or give in, but they didn't. We thank you for listening, and we hope to be that jolt of positivity as you go for your greatness.